life, your circumstance could change in a moment, good or bad. And, it goes back to is your glass half full or half empty? We all have bad days. We all have really good days. As long as I have a pulse, I have a purpose.
Rhonda Clark was not expected to live 48 hours, much less 50-plus years. Born with cerebral palsy, she demonstrates daily that everyone in life has a purpose. With the help of a support team and a canine companion, she works hard and advocates for others to demonstrate that life with a disability is just another way of living. Join us to learn how this entrepreneur continues to live her best life and why she's intent on creating better transportation options for those in Middle Tennessee who are living with disabilities.
We're glad you joined us to hear these inspiring stories from older adults, people who have so much experience and words of wisdom to share, but are sometimes overlooked in society today. I'm Sally Hussey, the CEO of 50 Forward, a Nashville-based nonprofit. Our mission is to support, champion, and enhance the lives of those 50 and older.
And I'm Susan Sizemore, your guide through these beautiful conversations with those who are living life to the fullest and who know how to squeeze the day in their second chapter of life. Now, in my second chapter and encore career, I'm following my passion for sharing the stories of older adults with you and with the world. If you like what you hear, please rate and follow Squeeze the Day on your favorite podcast platform. Today's Squeeze the Day is brought to you by the All of Us Research Program from the National Institutes of Health. Learn how you can help change the future of health by participating in the program. Visit www.joinallofus.org to learn more. Welcome to Squeeze the Day.
Thank you so much for having me today.
It's my pleasure. I want to start with when we met back in the cable TV business years ago. You worked at CMT and I worked at TNN, the Nashville Network. Why was that job so important to you?
That job was my first full-time job, which means I got a real paycheck and full-time hours, totally off government assistance, which I've stayed off since. I started at CMT in 1998. So I've been off of it for a long time. It was a job that changed every day for me, and I like that. I moved to Nashville, Tennessee in 1996 to work in radio and the country music industry. But when I got here, much to my surprise, the market is so saturated that I had to find a job. So I was going up and down Music Row in my wheelchair, peddling resumes. And I ended up working at CMT for 7.5 years. So I got to do a lot of different things. I started as the receptionist there. And then eventually I was promoted to the facilities assistant. So I was more behind the scenes than in front, which is fine. I was just thrilled to be there. And I actually thought that was going to be my dream job forever. It was an awesome experience. I met a lot of awesome people like yourself. The one thing that, and I knew this before I got here because I've been teased because of my cerebral palsy, that I learned everything on a telethon because I grew up on them. And in 1993, before I graduated from college, I met Holly Dunn at a cerebral palsy telethon in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And we had a 10-minute conversation about the music industry. And she said, "What do you want to do? What do you want to do in the music industry?" And I said, "Well, I want to be in radio." That was my big deal. I was so stuck on radio that I really didn't look into anything else other than radio in the music industry, which is kind of weird because I basically went from radio to television. Even though it was country music television, it was television. But she had said, if you want to be in the country sector, I would come to Nashville. But she made me promise that I would finish college first. And I did.
I guess it kind of speaks to how everybody and little statements throughout our lives have helped shape where we are today. I want to talk a little bit about, before you got to Nashville, just tell us a little bit about your roots.
Well, I wasn't supposed to live 48 hours. And in July, God willing, I will be 55.
Awesome.
So I was born 2.5 months early.
Mm.
And I had the cord wrapped around my neck 3 times.
Oh, my.
They didn't expect me to live. The doctors told my parents I would never live independently. I would never walk, talk, the whole 9 yards. I never said a complete sentence, and I can't say what the complete sentence was until I was 4 years old.
Wow.
But the joke is, I haven't shut up since. And I think it's kind of ironic that, being told that I would never walk or talk or live independently or go to college or anything like that, that I became a communication major. And that's one of the big things I do now. I do a lot of speaking engagements. I've worked both in the nonprofit sector as well as the for-profit sector.
What should others know about individuals living with a disability?
People with disabilities are people first. I have a disability, yes, but that does not define who I am as a person. I've had people say to me, because working in different genres and just being out in public, I've had people say to me, what happened to you? Or what's wrong with you? And my response is, I have cerebral palsy, but it doesn't have me.
And in many ways, you really have outlived and proven anything the early medical professionals stated about your life.
Right. And a lot of it was because of the physical therapy and occupational therapy and speech. And, I'm sure I had some feeding therapy because I was also, when I got home from the hospital, I was fed through a G-tube through my belly button. I've obviously made up for that now because I eat whatever I want. And by mouth. So
let's talk a little bit about support from others, not only emotional support, but physical supports. Will you tell us more about having a support team and why that's important to you? And as we age, why this is even more important?
A support team is critical, and it's even more critical with a disability as well as you age. And to have a team that is on your side and on your page, that makes a huge, huge difference. Because I came from a less than stellar family. I was raised in a less than stellar family. I decided when I was 18 that I was going to move out of my parents' home. I wasn't even out of high school yet. I was a senior in high school. And then to decide to move 640 miles away from where I grew up, which is Green Bay, Wisconsin, on my own, not knowing a soul. The only people that I knew were people in the music industry like Holly Dunn. And I knew that if I was going to make it here, either I'd have to crawl on a tour bus with somebody I knew or make it. And there were people that had said that I would never make it, or they were worried that I wouldn't make it. But I've been here 28 years now. And because of my medical team, my friends, I attend church. My church family has changed a little bit, but life evolves, and I'm trying to live life every day. And I encourage everybody, no matter what your circumstances are or what they look like, and they change every day. If you're living life, your circumstance could change in a moment, good or bad. And, it goes back to is your glass half full or half empty? We all have bad days. We all have really good days. I am more independent since moving to Tennessee than I've ever been in my life. But I don't think that I would be alive today if I wouldn't have moved to Tennessee. Just because, number one, it's cold in Wisconsin. I don't think my body could have handled much more than, when I left. And the medical team that I've met here, I've had a couple different surgeries, and I'm still getting PT. The nickname that I gave her is Magic Fingers, because the first time I met her, I told her, "You have magic fingers and you're right with God."
So inspiring. And your perspective on life, I think, is something that all of us really need to maybe do a reality check on, really our perspective and how we view things. Because, what you talk about is every day is a gift and things change, but how you accept them is really what defines your life moving forward.
Every breath I take, I have to really work at it. But to coin a phrase that Kathy Lee Gifford uses all the time, as long as I have a pulse, I have a purpose. And if everybody lived that way and everybody believed that, can you imagine the difference everybody could make? Every day.
So let's talk a little bit about another support that you've not mentioned. You have a canine companion, a four-legged support, and I've had the gift of getting to know a number of your canine companions, but let's talk a little bit about the role they play in your life.
I've had two now. This is my second one, Ice the Third. His name is Ice the Third. He was raised in Montgomery, Alabama, in the prison system, and he was born to an organization called Canine Companions for Independence, and it's a nonprofit organization. They give their dogs to the recipients free. He knows over 60 commands. One of the things that he does for me on a daily basis is put my foot plates down on my wheelchair so that, without him and without my equipment, my wheelchair and other things, I would not be able to live independently. Honestly, my first dog, Art the Second, where the name of my company that I founded back in May of 19, Able and Ready Transportation, that's where I came up with the name. I named it after my first service dog, Art, because he was always able and ready to serve.
That's so cool.
And honestly, both of my dogs, but mostly Art, because I was very guarded. I built walls, basically, and I let certain people in, but I was still very guarded. And both my dogs have taught me how to love and be loved.
Beautiful. And they're so skilled. I've watched them keep you from falling. I've watched one of them turn off a light in your home, which was amazing. So they're companions, but they also are life supports.
Yes, and they pick up things that I drop in weird places. I don't know how they can get into all the weird places that they need to in order to help, but they're just amazing.
So, is there something that you might want to share with others about understanding guide dogs too?
Well, my dog is considered a service dog. Guide dogs are usually referred to as for visually impaired or blind, but either way, when a dog is working, when it's a legitimately trained, certified service dog, please do not interact with the team. Do not interact with the dog, especially if it's a guide dog. If you distract that dog, you could be putting the person who is visually impaired or blind in danger because they're an extension of the individual who has the dog. But let me say this. A vest does not make a dog a service dog. That's a whole nother podcast for another day, by the way. There's so many fake service dogs out there, and it makes it really hard for people like myself and others who really need them and depend on them. And honestly, they're a lifeline.
Yeah, these are really good, gentle reminders. And I think before I got to know you and understood the role of your canine companion and a service dog, I was always tempted to say hello or kind of just pet the dog or whatever.
I
And
mean, you can say hello to me because
Sure.
think about it. If I would have stopped every time somebody wanted to take a picture of my dog or me, we would have never gotten anything done ever. You know, they're working just like you or I. They're just an extension of me.
At one point, Rhonda, you were telling us about an accident you had outside of work. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and the role your companion played in saving your life?
Yeah, I can talk about it a little bit. I had gotten to work, my place of employment at the time, and I thought I was going to just go eat lunch, but I had brought lunch and I just turned around and was walking back to work, and we crossed the street in the crosswalk, legally in the crosswalk, and someone hit me in my chair. So I ended up throwing my dog. Thank God, Ice, my service dog, was on the right side of me. So I threw him backwards. He was still attached to me. I threw him backwards and I turned to the right as hard as I could because she probably would have killed me. But because of the wheelchair that I have, Permobile, if I would have been in any other type of wheelchair, I probably wouldn't be here today talking to you because it never tipped over.
Oh my gosh.
A lady went through a stop sign. That's what happened. She was late for her appointment. We were legally in the crosswalk and she just plowed into me. He didn't get hurt at all. And I have to say it's funny because I had texted Judy Seal. I let her know that I was hit. She said, a guardian angel was watching over you for sure. And I said, yes, ma'am.
If this story is motivating you to look closer at someone's life and to learn more about how tough times can create larger opportunities, reach out to a neighbor or friend to learn more about them. Squeeze the day by getting involved in your community to deliver food or engage and learn from the wisdom and experience of an older adult. If you'd like to learn more, visit 54.org. That's FIFTY, Let's make a difference together. And now back to our show. Physical activity is so important to our well-being, and you told us a little bit about Magic Fingers and your physical therapy. I'd like you to just talk a little bit about where you would be without exercise and physical therapy.
Well, I mean, it's not any different than if you didn't do it. I mean, it's probably 3 times, 4 times more important for me because I would probably have pneumonia. In fact, I've had pneumonia before, and part of that was because I had surgery. I had some female surgery and I couldn't exercise until I was over all that. It's like a vicious cycle. But I will say this, and I've heard statistics, and it kind of drives me nuts. Statistically, I've read that it takes a person with cerebral palsy 3 to 5 times the amount of energy to do things. Now, do I share that as an excuse? No. Because if I want to live life to the fullest, whatever that looks like, and it may be different every day. Like, for instance, today, to get dressed, it took me 1 hour and 19 minutes.
Wow.
That's not that bad. When I first started, it used to take me 4 hours. And I couldn't put my shoes or socks on until I had bilateral shoulder surgery. So that's how important my medical team is to me.
Let's talk a little bit about just how you've been able to move your arms and your limbs so much better through the years because of medical assistance.
Well, I always have had PT with a little bit of, what I call hiccups in between. but I've always advocated for it because I would not be able to live independently. But I also, back in 2004, I had my first shoulder surgery. I had bone rubbing up against bone in my shoulder. And from little kid on to up until 2004, my hand was all contracted and stuck to my chest. It was actually my right hand. It was all closed. I couldn't really use it. I was just really contracted. And I got to a PT, and she had taught me how to dress myself to the best of my ability at that point. Well, then in 2004, I went to get out of bed one day and I couldn't move. It was because the shoulder hurt so bad, I had to have surgery. And she sent me to another doctor, my current doctor who's seen me since 2004. I won't go to anybody else because he changed my life. He says he just did surgery, but he changed my life. And he also sent me to the current PT that I go to. And I used crutches until 2016. Well, now that I'm older, I needed a broader base of support. And honestly, on Tuesday before PT this week, I wouldn't have been able to stay off the floor if I was still using crutches because I went to get out of bed and my legs would not straighten enough for me to stand up. So I was holding on to the walker and my legs were dangling in the air. I was like, okay, just wait until the message gets from my brain to the legs to put my feet on the ground.
And so that is the cerebral palsy, the brain
that's the short circuits that, well, I mean, it's damage to the cerebrum. So, and it's also due to spasticity because I have spastic CP. So, if you're not straight, that's the importance of exercise. I mean, for me, getting dressed every day is an exercise.
So I'd love to just talk about how eating, and especially clean eating, has changed your life.
I switched to cleaner eating. I kind of fall off the wagon every once in a while, but yes, I do eat cleaner than I ever have been now, just because as I've gotten older, I've had some gut issues, and that's common with people with disabilities, especially because they sit so much. And I've had other surgeries like everybody else, regular surgeries like gallbladder surgery and that kind of stuff. So when I had that, I had to change my diet.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, when I deviate, I pay for it. And it's the simple things. It's the little things. I was talking to a friend of mine a couple weeks ago, and I said, I'm so sick and tired of my eating off of paper plates. I eat off of paper plates because the food doesn't fall off. And I was trying to figure out what I could use. And she said, my daughter got some for her wedding. And I said, what are they? And she said, they're meal bowls. They're like a plate, but they have edge on them. So she asked her daughter, and she said, well, Mom, I think those will be a little bit too heavy. So and I said, well, are they breakable? Because if I drop them, that's a problem. And my friend found some Corel meal bowls. So I don't have to eat off of paper plates anymore. I can use real stuff. Like I said, the little things are the big things.
Mm-hmm. Now let's do a speed round of questions. What advice would you give your younger self?
Do your best every day.
How do you stay young and engaged?
My faith is huge.
What's your favorite hobby?
Listening to C.C. Winans or writing letters. Yes, I still write letters.
And I'm sure those who receive them are appreciative because that is a dying art and we should be writing more. Do you have a favorite book or author?
I would have to say the Bible, probably.
How about going back to food for a minute? Is there a quick, in a hurry, or favorite quick dish you like to prepare and have the ingredients on hand?
Well, my favorite sandwich is on sourdough bread. I put avocado, tomato, and cheese and grill it. Put the avocado on last. But as far as a salad goes, I use arugula, avocado. Yes, avocados are a staple in my house. A little bit of cheese because I'm from Wisconsin. That will never go away. I can't help it. Cheese and dark chocolate are my downfalls, I guess. But dark chocolate's good for you.
I was worried you were putting cheese and dark chocolate on a sandwich, and I was going to go.
No. But in a salad, I usually put baby arugula, tomatoes, maybe peppers, diced peppers, maybe a little bit of chicken, not always. Black beans are another staple in my house.
Who would you like to sing a duet with?
Linda Davis, I actually did.
Uh-huh.
At a fundraiser in 2014, I knew I was singing one duet, but I didn't know I was singing the duet with Linda Davis. and you know why I'm laughing, because you had something to do with that.
Yeah, that was a moment in time that I wish we could share with everyone, but it was priceless.
Yes. Well, and it raised money, so there you go. It was successful.
So I want to ask you something about values. Our agency has a value that talks about being an inclusive community. And I'm wondering, as a 50-something adult with a disability, what does inclusive mean to you?
To be inclusive means to include, to me, is, again, go back to the person. I want people to know when they're with me or around me or whatever, I want people to be who God created them to be, period. It may take me longer to do things. It may take me 10 times more to go places, whatever. And, I'm trying to fix that with my company, Able and Ready Transportation. We're not launched yet, but that's one of the biggest reasons I'm doing it, because I want people to live, move, and be with who they want to be with when they want to be with them.
And so you've touched on the transportation challenge, and I think your desire as not only an entrepreneur in your second chapter of life, but also the focus on advocacy for others, I think is so amazing. So just, tell us a little bit about that.
When I advocate, I don't just advocate for me. Able and Ready Transportation, for instance, is not just a soapbox for Rhonda Clark. There are over 1 million people that need accessible transportation. Because think about it. My wheelchair doesn't fold. It weighs close to 400 pounds. I can't take an Uber. When you have people that come here to do business, they fly here, and then they get here and they can't get anywhere, I'm just trying to help, because it's everywhere. It's not just here. It's everywhere. And people should be able to live their life to the fullest, whatever that looks like. One of the biggest barriers for people with disabilities across the board, doesn't matter what disability it is, for people with disabilities to get jobs or keep them is transportation. And that's a statistic from the University of Tennessee. But I know that from a personal standpoint, because my coworkers, when I used to work at CMT, my coworkers would pick me up in my car. And I never bought a van until I moved down here.
Well, it definitely pays to have supports, and I think what you're doing is so admirable. I've got a couple closing questions that we ask all of our guests. One is, what's one piece of advice that your parents or an older adult might have shared with you that at the time you thought was silly, but today it rings true in your everyday life?
Well, I don't think what my grandfather said was silly. And my grandfather said, go after what you want. Don't hurt anybody in the process. Make a difference. Believe in God and you'll be okay. That's the most profound. And I was 15 when he passed away. And my grandmother passed away first. They passed away 6 weeks apart.
Oh.
So my whole world fell out. But now you can see why I live what he said. Or at least I try.
Mm-hmm. He gave you that gift, and you've remembered it since you were 15, which I think is amazing. Yeah. So what is it, Rhonda, that you do to squeeze the day?
I just try to make a difference in one person's life a day. And I thank God every day for the life that I have. not every day is pie and ice cream, but you got to take a phrase from someone else that I heard speak and also has CP. David Ring used to say, take your lemons and make lemonade. That applies to everybody, whether you have a disability or not.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to the glass half full, half empty.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing your inspiring story with us.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
And as I leave you today, I'm sending you a big squeeze. Until next time. Squeeze the Day is made possible through listeners like you. If you enjoy this podcast, please help us continue to share inspiring stories of older adults and visit 54ward.org. That's FIFTYFORWARD.org to make a contribution. And now I challenge everyone listening to go squeeze the day.